Hello, in this video we're going to have a look at line graphs. So last week we had a look at bar charts, and this is similar, a different technique for drawing graphs of some data. So I could have drawn, for this example I've got here, I could have drawn some bars and drawn myself a nice bar chart. I have bars on each of these points here. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot some points and I'm going to connect them up with straight lines. And that's why I call it a line graph. So I've got my points plotted, I'm going to connect them up with straight lines, and I'm going to get this line graph. So my bar chart would have worked as well, but sometimes when my data's a whole bunch of numbers, the line graph can work a little bit better. And what it does, it makes it really easy to see how the data's changing. In my case, I've got days along here. I can see how the data's changing from one day to the next. So it's going up, it's going up, it's going up again, then it drops, and then it goes back up, and then it drops back down again. So the line graph makes it really easy to see what's happening with that data. So is it going up, is it coming down, and how does it change from one day to the next? So really useful technique, and we're going to get some practice at drawing some of these line graphs. So first things first, we're going to need some data. So this is actually the data we've just been looking at. We've got 7 days worth of data, and we've recorded the temperature at midday. So at lunchtime on each of these 7 days, we've recorded the temperature. So on day 1 it was 15 degrees, then it went up to 17, then it's gone up to 18, up to 21, and then it dropped down to 16, and so on. I need to plot that on my axes. So first things first, I need to draw the axes. So remember, the axes, these are just the lines that I'm going to put my scale against. So I'm going to need a vertical, that's the one that goes up, and I'm going to need an across axis as well, and I'm going to draw that in here. Ooh, it's slipping all over the place. Okay, so across here, I'm going to plot my days. So this is going to be my days, and I'm going to label it up. So my days go from 1 to 7. I've got 7 days in total. I'm going to put my day 1 here. Now, I could write day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, 6, and 7, and that would be okay, but my data, I'd be plotting my points between my pencil and my ruler. So everything's going to get really squashed in together, and it's going to be really difficult to see what's going on. So I'm going to give myself a bit more space. Rather than use 1 square, I'm going to use 2 squares. So I'm going to have 1 square here, then I'm going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I'm just spreading my points out a little bit more. It's going to be a bit easier to see what's going on. What I have done though is I've made sure I've got the same gap between each of my numbers. So I've gone 2 squares, 2 squares, 2 squares, 2 squares, 2 squares, and 2 squares. My numbers have gone up by 1 each time. So I've got the same gaps between each of my numbers. So I don't want to write 1 here and then 3 over here, then 4 right next to it and 6 over here. I need to make sure I've got these same gaps between each of my numbers when I'm plotting my values. It's called a constant scale, uniform scale across the bottom. Then I want to have a look at my numbers that are going to go up. This is going to be my temperature. So I'm going to write that on my other axis. My vertical axis, the one that goes up. And my numbers here, they're going to range from, well, I've got sort of teens here, 15, 17, 18. Look for the biggest value. So they're going up, 17's the biggest, 18, 21's the biggest so far, it's bigger than 16, bigger than 20, bigger than 14. So 21's my biggest number. My numbers are going to go up to 21. The questions that you're going to do, they're going to tell you what scale, so the numbers that you're going to need to plot going across, and also on the vertical, so this is the one that's going up. My data needs to go up to 21, I'm going to use 22, and round it up, go a little bit more than I need. I think I've got enough squares on here to do 1 square for each of my degrees centigrade. I could write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that would be absolutely fine. It'd take me a little while, but what would happen is my numbers are going to get really scrunched up, and it's going to be really quite difficult to read them. So rather than do that, I'm going to write them every other number. So that's 1, this is going to be 2, 3 and 4, that'll be 5, so this will be 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13 and 14, 15 and 16, 17 and 18, 19 and 20, 21 and 22. So the only reason for doing that is if I write all the numbers in between, I've got 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It becomes a little bit easier to see where your values are over here. It becomes really difficult to read your scale. So spreading it out a little bit better, especially when you've got handwriting like mine, makes it a bit easier to read. So it's looking good so far. I've got my two axes, my cross axes, I've got my label, I've got my vertical axes, and I've got my name for that axis as well. And I just need to plot my data points. So first one is day 1, I've got a temperature of 15. So I'm going to go from day over to day 1, and I'm going to go all the way up to 15. Sometimes it helps with a ruler to make sure that you're still following day 1 up. So I'm going up from day 1, and I'm going up to 15. So 15's halfway between 14 and 16, and I'm going to put a cross on that point. So I've come across from 15, and I've come up, let's see, so from day 1, I've come all the way up to this point, and where those two meet, so I'm coming across from 15 and up from 1, where they meet I'm putting a cross. So I've done that first piece. Second piece of data, day 2, temperature 17. So I'm going to day 2, and I'm going to come up as far as day 17, temperature of 17 degrees. So 17's halfway between 16 and 18, and I'm going to put a cross. Done the second one. Day 3, we've got a temperature of 18 degrees. So day 3, and then I'm going to come up to 18 degrees, and that's up to that point here. So we've gone up from day 3, and we've gone across from 18 degrees, and I've marked myself with a little cross. Day 4, we've got 21 degrees. So day 4, we're going up until we get to 21. So that's halfway between 20 and 22, and I'm going to put another cross on. Day 5, 16 degrees. Day 5, I'm going to go all the way up to 16 and put a cross. So double check, I've gone up from day 5 and 16 degrees, and that's where my cross is. Day number 6, we're coming up from day 6, and we want to get to 20 degrees. So day 6, and we're coming up all the way up to here. I'm going to mark that with the cross, double check. So from 20 degrees, across to my point, and that goes all the way down to day 6. Last point, day 7, 14 degrees. So day 7, we're going to come up to 14, which is here. So 7, up to my cross, 14 degrees, comes across, and I've marked it with a cross. Now looking really good. We've got our axes, we've got our points plotted. What we need to do now is connect those points up. So I'm going, starting with the first point on day 1, connecting that up to my value on day 2, then connecting it up to day 3, and then, so this is like dot to dot, doing day 3 to day 4, day 4 to day 5, day 5 to day 6, and day 6 to day 7. So I've now got my points plotted, I've connected them up, I have been using my ruler, it needs to be a straight line, so you need to make sure you're using a straight edge. I've been using my pencil, so if I do make a mistake, it's really easy to put one of these crosses in the wrong place. So I've got it down here, I could rub it out, put it in the right place. and make sure my line's drawn correctly. Again, if I connect it up with my ruler and pencil, it doesn't look quite right, I can rub it out and make sure I've drawn it in the correct place. We're almost finished. We've got one last thing to do. I've got my axes, and I've got a name, a label for each of my axes. I've got my points plotted. I've connected them up with straight lines. I need to give my graph a title. So I'm going to call it a graph of temperature at, remember our data, we'd collected it all at midday. So I'm going to call it graph of temperature at midday, and we've got ourselves a beautifully drawn line graph. Okay, your turn to get some practice. So follow the instructions in the document and have a go at drawing a couple of these line graphs yourself.